Okay, Shalom. All right, so Shalom. Kahalam la Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai Wahara Kakadash. The honors to the hopefully like elder apostles, ladies be saved. Lord willing, start with those of the GMS church. Shalom to the rest that may be out here under the same doctrine. Okay, and to the Akim here, in the order, giving all diligence and true faith and sincerity. Shalom and to the rest, onward to the rest of the Akim doing likewise, teaching. Okay, from the elder Akim to you younger. And to the rest of the believers and on this faith of Yahweh Bashmi outside as well, Shalom. Those of you that's hoping to be of this that beautiful number, to hopefully let House of David. So this is pretty much gonna be going into, just some quick news update, which, you see the title, Who Has Believed Our Report, which I just probably just use to just bring out specific like news, but specific type of news that's relevant but can't be put under like a Novus Supreme update, or a Gambit. And because with this particular one, this is like this goes into the rumors of war, okay, which is what I was going to title this, but which pretty much is a result of which this being that this result here, or this news before you, being India banning the wheat exports and whatnot, being a result, as they say, from the war. But all of this orchestrated, so it's kind of hard to really keep it under that narrative. And we know that this orchestration, this famine orchestration, which is biblical, is prophecy. The Lord says he's going to bring famine, but it just happened to be through the means of Esau being a devil and orchestrated, okay, which is rumors of war. Because their reasoning to everybody, well, the war in Ukraine is causing, a famine, and people don't want to provide this. And really, y'all setting all this up. Y'all want this, okay? And in the other instance, it can't really be that Novus Seclorum gradual. It can't be really gradualism because, they won't obviously famine, but it just made more sense to just keep this under a news thing, theme, just outright, okay, and just address it for what it is. And perfectly being who has believed our report. So through bringing this information out, you will see basically what it's deemed to be and how you should take it and respond to it, which is once again regarding this wheat supply shortage, which is actually famine, and you will see how. So who has believed our report? So I'm gonna go ahead and hit play on this.
Got a 5.2% increase in wheat prices in the last 2 days. Does it mean that further upward pressure is likely to keep on being piled on on agricultural commodities?
Well, I could say so, Rishad. Yeah, I think definitely. We've already seen global food costs at a record earlier this year, and the chances are they're going to keep on going higher. What we need is a series of good bumper crops globally to relieve tight supplies, and that's just not in prospect at the moment. And we're seeing increased food protectionism too. This move from India, as you say, over the weekend, and just follows a few weeks after Indonesia banned exports of palm oil. It's the world's biggest producer, and that's sent up prices too. Palm oil is the world's big, and just follows a few weeks after Indonesia banned exports of palm oil. It's the world's biggest producer, and that's sent up prices too. In general terms, the world is extremely prone to erratic weather these days. Over the last 2 years or so, this has become more extreme. We have US production of hard red winter wheat, which is the most widely grown wheat in the US, falling to the smallest crop since 1963. We have dry weather problems in Europe. And of course, above all, we have the war in Ukraine, and that's choked off exports from the European breadbasket. So it's very, very hard to see exports from the European breadbasket. So it's very, very hard to see where any relief is coming from Europe. And of course, above all, we have the war in Ukraine, and that's choked off exports from the European breadbasket. So it's very, very hard to see where any relief is coming from for global food inflation, Richard. It's very, very hard to see where any relief is coming from for global food inflation, Richard.
Jim, talk to us about the impact this is having on the wider economy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's feeding through into the inflation narrative. Obviously, energy costs have been very high, and that's also supporting agricultural prices. Food is getting more expensive, and you hear more and more sort of anecdotal stories about people finding flour hard to find, especially in the North African and Middle Eastern countries who should depend hugely on imports of wheat for their supplies. Find more and more sort of Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's feeding through into the inflation narrative. Obviously, energy costs have been very high, and that's also supporting agricultural prices. Food is getting more expensive, and you hear more and more sort of anecdotal stories about people finding flour hard to find, especially in the North African and Middle Eastern countries who should depend hugely on imports of wheat for their supplies. So, it's going to feed through to inflation. It makes the whole interest rate issue much more difficult to deal with for central banks, because they have to, as we've said before, have to see how they can control inflation without producing a recession.
James,
central banks, because they have to, as we've difficult to deal, makes the whole interest rate issue much more difficult to deal with for central banks, because they have to, as we've said before, have to see how they can control inflation without producing a recession.
James, does this mean that we're even more subject to weather conditions because of what's happening out there at the moment? And does that mean that there's no way of knowing when we're going to see any respite from high prices?
Yeah, I can only agree with that, Richard. I mean, you have got global warming, you've got climate change, you've got more volatile weather, more erratic weather globally, and has been causing havoc. It was an immense drought last year in Canada, which slashed the wheat crop by about 50-60%. That could rebound this year, but you've had record temperatures, heat wave in India, which is one of the reasons that has fallen, one of the reasons why they had to restrict exports. So the world is getting more volatile in terms of weather, and that's feeding through into crop prices and food inflation.
So yeah, man, as you heard, you heard a lot, but pretty much let's start, I guess, in reverse. So they're talking about what? They're talking about I don't know why this is doing this. Let me try to close this out one more time. But pretty much they're talking about how the weather is affecting, um, much, the yields, which is pretty much basically saying that's what's causing it to be a shortage, because, which is obviously, a famine, but not to keep, jump. But that's biblical, okay? Because Esau, the earth is in the power of Esau's hand. I don't know what's going on with this. So you know what? Let me do this. Let's go here. Let's go to King James. Blue letter has been tripping. I don't know what's going on, blue letter. Let's pull this up. Okay. At Genesis 4:12. This is pretty much what's playing out right now. This is Genesis 4:12. It says this is when the Most High was talking to Cain, who's the so-called white man today. It says, for those that can receive it, when thou tillest the ground, right, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond thou shalt be in the earth. So the Lord said this place isn't going to, the earth, when Esau goes to harvest, isn't going to yield his strength to him. Let's actually get that in the NLT. Okay. Okay. There we go. No longer will, Genesis 4:12 in the NLT, no longer will the ground yield good crops for you. No matter how hard you work, from now on, you will be a homeless wanderer on the earth. So yeah, so the earth is not yielding forth its strength, which is resulting, because Esau, the earth has been, it's the whole earth, which has the whole earth. One, this is said to Esau, who was Cain at the time, but which is regarding when he will go to harvest, bring forth food from the earth, right? It'll ultimately fail. He wouldn't get the most out of it. And it could ultimately be an outright failure, as it says, and that has the whole earth. The whole earth is subject to this now. Why? Because the tell us in Genesis, it's like in Job, the 9th chapter, in the 24th verse, how the whole earth is given into the hand of the wicked, in which Cain was. Okay. And I'm gonna just get that for those that just may be new to it. But then, we be thorough. Genesis 9:24, and it reads what? The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the face of the judges thereof. If not, where, and who is he? Yeah. So the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Now who's that wicked? This is 2 Thessalonians. Okay. Who is that wicked one? Rather, who is the wicked one in the scripture? Yeah. 1 John 3:12. It's going to tell us. All right. It reads what? Not as Cain, 1 John 3 and 12. Not as Cain. So the context is who? Cain, right? Who said to, let me just read it, who was of that wicked one. See that? And slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil and his brother's righteous. So what? Cain is that wicked one. So once again, in reverse, the earth has been given into the hand of the wicked. Being who? Being Cain. Okay? As it say, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Job 9 and 24. Being who? Being Cain. Going back. 1 John 3 and 12. Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one. Right? So the whole earth is in the hand of Cain. And what was said to Cain? Genesis 4 and 12 in the NLT. No longer will the ground yield good crops for you. See? Now, no matter how hard you work, from now on, you will be a homeless wanderer on the earth. So that can contribute to what? And it actually is, as they say, to the famine, to the lack of wheat and etc. So the whole earth is suffering, let's go here. Okay. Then what I want to do now is cue up principal things, because this series, let's just do this. Okay, Iraq 39 and 26. Okay. The reason why this wheat shortage is so important because why? Iraq 39 and 26 tells us the principal things for the whole use of man's life are water, fire, iron, flour of wheat. See, and they was already saying it's a shortage of flour. The best flour is the flour of wheat. But you need wheat flour first and foremost simply by having wheat, which is a shortage of. And they say that's a principal thing. Honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil, and clothing. See that? So this series, just keeping it to say the least. Why? Because say India once again is they just banned export on harvesting. On wheat. Why is that so important? It says what? Synopsis. India is the world's second biggest. Of course, it says it's the second biggest wheat producer, but the government itself, the country's biggest buyer of the crop, said it chose to protect food security for its mammoth population despite inflation concerns. Yeah, they don't want to run out, so they just banned it. What you see in the exceptions that they was talking about in the video here, to exclude, Egypt. Egypt might have been, that's what I seen. Yeah, Egypt is exempt. Okay. And that's actual Egypt, not spiritual Egypt. So you people got something to worry about. Once again, why? With this? Because wheat is one of the principal things. Okay. Y'all gonna see that, man. All right. So they had on the list, went India at number 8 when you go here, this is from May 2020, May 22nd, which is yesterday, 2022, from the economic times.indiatimes.com. It says India is the world's second biggest wheat producer. Because really, what they're addressing on there, on that graph, is what the biggest shippers of wheat. India ranked 8th among wheat exporters in 2021 through 2022. So it's not that this has nothing to do with
The cross slap.
this has nothing to do with them, with those that have the most of it. You see that? This just deals with who's shipping it out. But according to this, India, which makes this serious, is the world's biggest. This is world's second biggest wheat producer. So they got all the wheat, and that's pretty much it, man. Okay, and then I was supposed to been did this, report. And then you have here, they say a food insecure. You know what? I had another scripture. Yeah, like probably come to mind after I read this though. A food insecurity expert predicts that there's only 10 weeks of wheat supplies left in the world as Russian invasion disrupts production. See, which isn't true because the biggest producer of it, they just banning the export because they trying to keep it for themselves, which makes sense because one, it take money to ship, and then two, with inflation being surging all over the earth, with them, they basically cutting the expense. It costs money to ship all that, to ship that out, so they just keep it for themselves, and they able to counter. That could be like a way for them to counter inflation, which all go back to the devil, because he's doing this, man. The so-called white man doing what he do best, and that's destroying the earth, which really that's what Cain, so-called white man, is doing, which is causing the earth to not yield for a good crop. They destroy the earth. Jeremiah 51:25 tells us this. And also Isaiah, I want to say that's the 26th chapter. Okay. Or is that? It's locked. The 24th chapter. It says what? It says verse 4. It says, the earth mourneth and fadeth away, and it's like the world languisheth. See, the earth mourneth and fadeth away. Through who? Through Esau, the damn devil, destroying it, man. When you read Jeremiah 51:25, that destroying mountain, the government, the way they set things up, they might want to build a new infrastructure, so they cut stuff down, they, uproot, trees and just destroy lands in the process to set up his monopoly, his boardwalk, what I'm saying, his different infrastructures. You got to destroy the earth to do that. Okay. What's this going to say? So the earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languisheth. Yeah, the whole world, meaning the people in it. And everywhere his way, his philosophy is found at, is going to be destroyed because it's one of destruction. It's a philosophy of destruction. You know, and being greedy and hurting the earth. You know, war, etc. It says and faded and faded away. Because you think about war destroyed the earth in itself. Bombs being dropped. You know, that's causing mudslides because that's throwing off the tectonic plates and the earth will shift. You know, uh, and that causes mudslides, and then that further destroys the earth and probably places where proper set up. This dude just gotta go, but it says the haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinances, broke the everlasting covenant. See? And that's dealing with going back to the garden. Well, not the garden, it's like back to Cain. Okay? And they're going to prove it. Therefore, have the curse devoured the earth. Why? Because Cain doing what he do best and doing it worldwide now. Because he's back as Esau, getting the fatness, reaping the fatness of the earth. You know, trying to get the oil, digging the oil out of the earth. You know, which the oil's in the earth, you know, for a reason, you know. So he just completely just got his hand on the whole earth now, you know. But once again, he's actually Cain, the so-called white man Esau. So he still, every time he sets up agriculture or, you know, touches the earth or tries to go and harvest, he brings forth that curse that was put upon him as Cain. And since he's touching the earth, the whole earth is in his hand. The whole earth is devoured by the curse. It says that they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. Now, this is just all prophecy. All of this stuff happening. They're talking about this. There's going to be a you know, wheat shortage, food shortage, which is ultimately a famine. You know, which they saying is through pretty much inflation and people trying to compensate for it. You know, the weather, but it really goes back to the so-called white man, because he even said that he plays with the weather. But this is all the will of the Heavenly Father. Verse 1, behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. And it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with his master, as with the maid, so with her mistress, as with the buyer, so with the seller, as with the lender, so with the borrower, as with the taker of usury, so with the giver of usury to him. Yeah, and that's a good one. Let's actually pull that up in the NLT real quick. Yep. Priests and lay people, servants and masters, maids and mistresses, buyers and sellers, lenders and borrowers, bankers and debtors, none will be spared. Yeah, through everything being destroyed and people trying to counter it, which would result, which is simply people trying to protect themselves. And when you're trying to protect yourself, sometimes you gotta hurt somebody else. Somebody is at the expense of somebody else's safety. You know, you see the next verse, it says the earth will be completely emptied and looted. The Lord has spoken. The earth mourns and dries up. The land wastes away and withers. Even the greatest people on earth waste away. You know, and it's dealing with the you know, once again the damn devil, you know, Esau, the wicked one. I mean, Cain, going back to Cain. So yeah, that's pretty much that, man. I think I had something else I wanted to bring. It was another scripture because they said, so this is all biblical to cap the point off. And the Lord, as he said in verse 3, back in the KJV, Isaiah 24, the land shall be utterly empty, prophecy, and utterly spoiled, for the Lord hath spoken it. And he will do all of this through who? through the hands he has given the earth into. You know, it's all biblical, and really to show people how to not rule the earth. You know, when you go to Sirach, the 10th chapter, in the 4th verse, it tells you that. It tells you how the earth is in the power of the hand of the Lord. So, you know, he handed it over to him, you know. And it says what? I'm going to start at 3. It says, an unwise king destroyed his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited, which goes into my point as well. It's all being orchestrated. It says the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he set over it one that is profitable. See? So the unwise king is Esau, who's Cain, destroying the earth and the people through destroying the earth, you know, because he just wants it all for himself. You know, the Bible talks about pretty much Esau's desire to, you know, just have everything to himself, you know, and it's just to show people like how you're not supposed to rule. Okay, so that's basically that. Now, I had one more because they said that this is coming because that's the rumors of war thing. Oh, you know, and you know, another thing that's cutting it off is you know, the war in Ukraine. You know, stop it, man. The earth is not gonna run out of food. The scriptures tell you that the earth abideth forever. So the rhymes of reasoning that the devil himself is giving for why there ain't no food, how it ain't about to be no food, which is crazy to say. And you can't. Well, he's saying that because they are able to test their crops. You know, the productivity of their crops, which you know they're failing, man. They're failing. They ain't the only reason. That ain't how that. That's the only reason they can say that. Maybe they can say that because they orchestrating an outright famine, man, which the Bible is also alluding to. So yeah, he can't bring forth really good yields anyway, but the yields that still will come forth according to Genesis, the 4th chapter and the 12th verse, he's saying they dissipating now completely, which is impossible because the Lord said his servants gonna eat. Eat what? We're supposed to eat of the earth. You know, it's because the scriptures tell you what? The scriptures tell you that the king himself in the book of Psalms, is served of the pretty much of the earth. You know, the herbs and stuff. Yeah, the prophet of the earth. Exactly. Kind. Ecclesiastes 5 and 9. Slaki. Moreover, the prophet of the earth is another one of the songs I'm thinking of too. But it says, moreover, the prophet of the earth, right, is for all. The king himself is served by the field. See? So we get all our food from there. Now, how would you have this coming to pass if all the food, all the yield is basically completely gone? If it's a yield to where ain't nothing coming forth, how would you have this come to pass? Isaiah 65 and 14. I'm gonna start at 13. It says, therefore thus saith the Lord, Yahweh, shall power, behold, my servants shall eat. Those that's in this truth, teaching this word, man, of so-called Blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians, and the totality of it that's been given. Old Testament, Apocrypha, the New Testament. Doing, you know, coming in the name of the Lord, in the name of his son, Yahweh, why Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Baal Shem Yahweh Shai. But it says, but ye shall be hungry. See, because it's a prophet, famine is prophesied. The Lord said we gonna eat, but we supposed to be, but it say man is what? Served of the field. Even the king of himself, even, you know, which is talking about the prophet of the earth, meaning what? The yields, the yields of the earth. Okay. Let's pull it up real quick. You know, okay. But I'm gonna come back here real quick. It says, "Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. From what? The earth. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. Behold, my servants." So that's that. How would you be able to have this happen if the yields would be so weak to the point they wouldn't bring forth anything? They wouldn't. You wouldn't. Thus, all is being orchestrated, and we know that this food that he's talking about comes from the earth. Because once again, Ecclesiastes 5 and verse, jump back, 9, Lord said what? Even the king milks the land for his own profit. I know it's a better one too, but really want to KJV better. Moreover, the profit of the earth, see, is for all. The king himself is served by the field. So there it is. This food will come from the earth. How would you be able to have, once again, the Lord serve and eat it in a time of famine, which is supposedly, which is a biblical, this is a time that's gonna go on, that's actually going on now. But let Esau tell it, it's gonna be because the yields they're so low. That's one of the reasons that they might not bring forth anything, which is which is the food we would be eating of. You wouldn't be able to have it. So this is orchestrated. But that's why they telling them themselves, because in the same breath they say that, they say, well, another thing that's causing a wheat shortage, which is a famine, right? Because that's food, is what? People pretty much trying to protect themselves, etc. And then the what? The war in Ukraine, which once again is him telling on himself that it's basically orchestrated. Y'all choosing to do this, if you will. Let's prove it. This is Matthew 24 and 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. A rumor, a lot of times, is lies. It's just he say, she say. And they said these rumors, they're of war. So famine, like, oh, word is, ain't no more wheat because of the war. That's a rumor of war. It says, see that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So yeah, you're gonna hear a lot of lies that come out through the war. That's propaganda, you know, and that's what Esau is definitely using the war to bring. He want people to think ain't no more food left, which is really setting people up for something else he got planned, which is what? His old Ordo Abkeo technique. So this is verse 7. It says, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom. See, and then another thing, the Lord said, this not even an end. So at the end of the day, you people gonna starve to death. You people that's not in your house, Bashmi on Shire, gonna starve to death. We're gonna be tested, we're gonna be tried. We hate our lives anyway. So, you know, we're gonna eat good. You know, you people, this for you people. You know, you wicked. You gotta be out Satan, man. So this verse 7, for nation shall rise, us that's in this truth. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrow. So ultimately, this is not to the point where all life is cut off. Those that's in this truth, no. It's just getting the life that you once made new before these times started manifesting themselves will come to an end, you know, or will start to, you know, squeeze, you know, and that straight gate will be more manifest. You know, there's gonna be a bunch of other stuff that happen, but is it gonna be to the point where we perish, we can't eat no more? No, it's not saying that, man. Look, that's not what's gonna happen. When the famine come, it ain't because the earth is not bringing forth food. The scriptures already, the Lord already told us in Ecclesiastes, what, the first chapter, That what? Ecclesiastes 1 and 4. It says, generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. And when you read it in the KJV, you know, it tell you that the earth abided forever. See that? So the earth is going to be forever here. And if the earth is forever here, that means it's constantly running its process to be able to be considered the earth and remain, which consists of bringing forth food, profit. So y'all can stop it, but a lot of you people, you gonna, don't think it is. I'm telling you, ain't gonna. Well, it's gonna be wheat still left. Like you gonna be able to go get your wheat. They just lying. Ain't gonna be. No. You gonna go in stores for you wicked people. It ain't gonna be no wheat where you at, man. Ain't gonna be no food where you at. You gonna die. You know, you gonna die. This is verse 4. It says, "One generation passed away, and the KJV, and another cometh, but the earth abideth forever." So that's basically the point. That's all I wanted to bring out. You know, once again, they saying a food and security expert predicts that there's only 10 weeks of wheat supplies left in the world as Russian invasion disrupts production. This is a rumor of war, but that gives them a way to once again be able to bring forth what they want and actually starve people out. And people gonna actually die of starvation. But before it just go down easy like that, you're gonna have people fighting back to live. And all hell gonna break loose, man. You see what I'm saying? So you heard about Indonesia. They stopped exporting flour. And then the banks, they pretty much are helping cause this because they're sending interest rates up due to the inflation that's taken off, which will be wheat providers in this sense up in their prices because of the inflation, which is supposedly from the war and bad yields. And everybody just basically trying to compensate, if you will. But once again, a bank, they supposedly responding by sending interest rates higher because with everything around you going up and you got a business, you got to send your prices up to compensate for the extra money you got going out now for things that cost 3 times as much as you was just paying for. So now you're trying to basically break even or keep profiting. So the inflation just gonna keep, you know what I'm saying? So that's basically that. So it's all biblical. It's all of the devil. We're gonna be all right. You know what I'm saying? This is just a news update. Uh, and that's pretty much it, man. So I'm gonna close this out. The spirit, I'm gonna give all honor, praise, and glory. How about you now, shy? Till next time, Shalom.